Hi, Steve Gillmor, and I'm the least excited person on this show. The most excited person is Danny Sullivan, who it seems to be operating on some sort of illegal substance.
I got up so early this morning, that's the problem. I was like, I had to get up at like 5:30 or something. We did this thing in Italy, and I had to call. So I'm kind of tired. I'm tired, I'm punchy. Hey, Steve.
Hi. Hi.
Punchy.
Okay. Also juggling a ball is Robert Scoble. Welcome, Robert.
What's going on? It's a robo ball from Spear.
I know we were doing that. Okay.
Oh, God. I've talked. This is the third show I've done today.
Really?
Talked out.
Oh, that's great.
I'm going to be
I didn't know we were doing
speechless.
Oh, I can't
Speechless
see
in Seattle or
Well,
in Half Moon Bay.
Why don't you
Can't
just
see anything
summarize
now.
what you said on the other shows after we introduce everybody else?
Here's the summary. Read the book.
I did start reading the book. It's
I hope
very
we're all
good.
doing that. I'm going to do it too.
I see. Okay. And then Inside Man today. Thank you. Robert will thank you so that you don't have to mute constantly, is Kevin Marks.
Hi there. Yes, someone's actually drilling a large hole outside somewhere, so I thought I'd come inside for a change.
Okay. And then John Taschek will join us as soon as John Taschek joins us. Okay, so...
Very little.
Yeah. So this has actually been an exciting week for reasons that I'm sure followers of the show already know. Namely, Twitter made a whole boatload of money. You want to talk about that, Robert? Did you already talk about that on other shows?
No, I'm bored by Twitter. A lot of people made money. Yay. Yay, team.
Okay, so what did
did we
talk
say about this? $35 billion valuation, three-fifths of a Facebook.
Yeah, I think that's. I think that'll go up. I think that they're going to be 3.5 of a Facebook.
I don't know. It went down a little bit today.
Yeah. So they're just billionaires with not a lot of pad today.
I just, I think the valuation is a little bit nutty, but it'll settle down. It went down 7% today, so people are like, maybe we should settle down. I don't know. I'm not a stock guy, and Twitter, this thing keeps moving, so there's value there.
What is that thing? Oh, you mean the stream?
Yeah.
And,
As long as that keeps moving, they make money.
And speaking of streams, welcome John Taschek.
Hello, everyone. Happy Friday.
Thanks.
Or Saturday, as it may be.
Can you tilt down a little, John?
The camera?
Yeah. Well, or yourself. Tilt you up or the camera. There you go. No, other way. Perfect. Okay. All is revealed. The secrets of our secret sauce. Speaking of that, I'll get this over now. There's this big box in the back of the room that says New Tech on it.
Woo! Yay!
Okay.
Are you getting a new tech?
Someone's happy back
I
there.
have no comment at this time.
A new
What do you
new
get?
tech.
What are you getting?
There's a big box in the back of the studio that
What
just
is it?
arrived. I can't tell you.
It's from New Tech.
New Tech.
New
I
Tech.
thought you meant New Tech.
It's a Roku, Danny.
Need your address so I can send you the Roku. Do
Yeah. Well,
you want to give it out to us all now?
absolutely not.
Everybody would like to send you gifts, and if you could just give us your address,
All right. Well, in lieu of gifts,
Okay.
please send flowers to New Tech and Rackspace because they are supportive of us in a considerable and extremely important way. Robert, you're a little soft on Focus for some reason.
I'm always soft on
I think
Focus.
that's from last night.
Yeah. This is how they show alcohol in the movies.
A little soft on Focus.
POV.
I don't know. It looks pretty sharp on my screen, and then it looks a little less on yours. So
No, but it settles
Next-
down. It's when you touch the screen or whatever it is that you did.
yeah, next Friday we'll see how it looks with that new box on.
Yeah, it'll be the same. Only it'll be much more programmable.
All right.
All right, so
Xbox One.
evidently Steven Elop is going to kill Xbox. Did you see that?
Did he? Is he
Oh
really?
yeah, as
I would-
well as being.
What do you think about that, Danny?
But
I know
Well,
what
let
Robert thinks about it.
Robert's
It's
there.
the salvation of.
no, let's just
I
kill
wanna
something
tag
that
team
people are
for it.
staying in line for. Yeah, that's really bright.
Danny, I'm having a little hard time hearing you. Could you say again what you said?
I said I was going to let Robert go first, and then we could tag team.
And I went.
Oh,
Okay, so Danny, what do you think about that?
I'm some bit punchy first of all. Okay, so first I'm confused why Elop would even be the person to run Microsoft, because what I know of him last time was he didn't seem to make Nokia into anything other than something left for Microsoft to buy, and I mean and buy almost like by default because we've got some patents and other stuff or whatever. I mean it's sort of like you drove Nokia into the ground, and your big solution was, I guess Microsoft will buy you. So now, are you the person who's going to revitalize Microsoft and make it this big powerhouse to go forward into the future? Supposedly, if he is one of those people. But maybe there's stuff there I don't know. I'm not an expert on Elop and his expertise in reviving businesses or whatever. But then the other thing is, so Xbox actually seems to be one of the shining points of Microsoft. My understanding was they actually make money off of it, and I don't think gaming's going away anytime soon, and it seems to be something where they have an advantage over, I don't know, these other people they're trying to compete with, like Google and Apple. Neither one of them have a game console. Oh, I know you don't need game consoles because, you all do it on your iPad now, and you do it on your iPhones, and yeah, that's true to an extent. On the other hand, just looking around the house here, the kids are on the Xbox a lot. They like the Xbox. So I don't know. I don't see why you would get rid of that, especially if Microsoft is supposed to be this, revive, now we do hardware type of thing. So I don't know. That seemed a bit odd. Then the other thing was, well, they'll kill Bing. So here I can talk a bit more. First of all, they wouldn't kill Bing. Now, I don't know. By the way, I think Microsoft, Frank Shaw, who's their head of their PR, said something to Bloomberg like, "Thank you for your fictional, ideas."
Yeah, we're looking forward to the next
chapter
of your fiction.
But let's explore the idea if they were to get rid of Bing. One thing they could do is just say, "Hey, we've spent a lot of money on this search engine, Bing, and to date we don't seem to be making more money off of it, so we're just not going to do it at all." Yeah, they have to have a search engine, right? Microsoft cannot, and it's hard for any major company with an online presence these days to not have some kind of search functionality that people use. So they can't just say, well, we're not Bing anymore, so when you get your Windows phone, good luck with looking for information, or when you're using...
Yeah, but I mean, Microsoft's strategy has always been to, submerge the browser into the OS, submerge search into the OS. I mean, this isn't anything new.
You have to have search. So what I'm saying is, right now, Bing for them is their search solution. So they can't get rid of Bing in the sense that they just get rid of search. If they get rid of Bing itself as a brand, something else has to come into its place. Something else has to provide search results for those boxes and those integrations and all that stuff all over the place. And if
those
Microsoft
boxes, you mean the ones that are dropping like a stone in terms of volume?
They're dropping, but there's people still using them. And there's Xboxes that are being sold that have integration for web search. There are Windows phones out there that are being sold that still have web search or whatever. I mean, aside from the fact that they've got market share stuff that they've got to grow, I don't think anybody thinks that market share is going to get any better if they suddenly have dysfunctional search. you can't have a mobile operating system without the ability to do searches on it. So if they don't run their own search engine, whose search engine are they running? And what they can't do is get it from Google. There's just no way. There's no way they can go over and say, hey, we're not going to do Bing anymore. You know what? That idea that how Yahoo should just outsource search, we're going to do the same sort of thing. Because first of all, the Federal Trade Commission, which didn't want to let Google and Yahoo partner, isn't going to suddenly go, oh yeah, but you know what? If Microsoft, you want to get out of the space and drop all your technology and everything, just use Google. That's cool because we think Google should have a 90% share of everything. Because that's what would happen, right? If they just got rid of it entirely. Now, what is more likely is they get convinced that the idea is they shouldn't run the search engine anymore, so let's sell Bing off to somebody else. And they're the candidates that are leading ones would probably be Facebook and Yahoo. Very intriguing if they send it over to Yahoo, right? Say to Marissa, hey, Marissa, how about you take this Bing thing off our hands for like $1 and, you know, we'll use your results and we'll flip it around. That's interesting.
Why?
Because, first of all, Yahoo, while they're pretty much out of the search game now, their CEO knows search. Secondly, they still have some remnant search, you know, market share and search chops, if you will, that people do still, some of them think of Yahoo as a search engine. So it can basically, you know, have their search engine back if they want to, and if they had all the technology and everything. Yeah, I think there is a place where you can make money by being the second place player in search. There's a lot
Danny,
of
what is Bing's future? Just the roadmap. I mean, Google has a lot going on with search and how they associate it with advertising and a whole ecosystem around their phone system and how it works with everything they do. What is Microsoft's roadmap around Bing? Is it just to be the same as Google, or is it something else that they're trying their different assets together with?
Well, officially, it's, you know, we're going to provide a better experience than Google or whatever. But, you know, realistically, they are the Google alternative.
That doesn't get any. It's like they're striving to be number 2 or number 3. They have to have something that goes beyond that.
Being number 2 in a multi-billion-dollar industry is not a bad thing to be.
Not for Microsoft.
Sure, why not?
They want to be number 2. Who wants to be number 2 if you're Microsoft?
No, I understand. I understand in the sense that, like, you know, Microsoft, as many companies would want to be number 1. Realistically, they're not going to be number 1. That's not going to happen. I mean, there's nothing they can do in the near term or medium term that is going to suddenly cause people to abandon Google. People like.
But what if you didn't think? What if they did not think about it in terms of search, like going to a search place and having pretty pictures? What if they did something else, which tied it into location or tied it into other things that they could rationalize the investments in? Otherwise, why would Yahoo even want it?
So they don't. Bing doesn't just think of. Microsoft doesn't just think of Bing as I'm going onto the web and I'm doing a search. They think of Bing as a platform providing search results throughout all their properties, which is one of the reasons.
It doesn't do that, though.
Yeah, it does.
What I don't. How? I use Windows 8. You know, I'm one of the few guinea pigs that are out there that use it, and I use Chrome, and of course Chrome doesn't default to Bing. But if I load up Internet Explorer, which just had an update, then it goes into Bing, and I see no difference. I don't see any value proposition at all.
Right.
And if I go into the application space on the little, Metro style interface that it used to be called Metro, and I search, it's not Bing that does that. It doesn't bring in all together the assets of anything that's on a mobile platform or on the desktop. It's completely separated.
So when you go into like Xbox has Bing, and Bing is considered your search engine across all of Xbox. On Windows 8, they don't do that kind of Bing branding to say, well, when you do your smart search and you have that Unibox or whatever, that's all coming from Bing. And I agreed, and they haven't really kind of got the platform message in that kind of regard. But they've kind of belatedly come into this whole platform thing. But to step back a bit more, yes, you're on Windows and you're using Chrome because you go that way. There are lots of people who are going to buy a Surface. It's going to come with Internet Explorer, and they're never going to download Chrome. They may just continue to use it as the default.
Well, why isn't it on the iPad? Why isn't it the default? Didn't they invest hundreds of millions of dollars in Apple? Why isn't it there? I mean, why aren't they leveraging anything they do in order to get Bing to be more important?
Well, so one of the big things that happened in iOS 7 was that Bing became the primary search engine for Siri. Previously, it was Google. So, you say, Siri, I'm looking for something, and Siri trying to decide if it has a match from, Yelp.
So Gillmor's actually using Bing?
Gillmor's not using Bing.
When he does Siri,
if he's using
Bing?
Siri, he's using Bing.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. So that's actually a good step.
It's maybe exactly.
Maybe that makes sense in Yahoo's world.
What are you talking about?
It is a big step because that is like their tryout, right? Because if you remember when Apple dropped Maps in iOS 6, right? All hell broke loose, right? Because they stopped using Google Maps, they went to Apple Maps, and Apple Maps sucked. And so it was like, why'd you do this? What you did? So the last thing you want to do if you're Apple is abandon Google as a search engine and go over to Bing, and then have anything go wrong, and everybody will just assume, well, that's because Bing sucks, and you've sold us out once again. But that's also why the Yahoo thing is intriguing. I mean, so here you are, and you're Apple. And you got to partner with somebody on search. You have to have a search solution. And yes, you can use Siri as the front end, and you can try to keep them away from both Microsoft and Google. But in the end, you need that backup. You need that web search solution for when all else fails. Right now, you're doing it with Google. You don't like Google. Remember, you're thermonuclear on Google, and yet you still keep renewing search deals with Google. And that's because Google has a good search engine. People want that search engine, regardless of whether or not they're Apple fanatics or not. They're not necessarily all in your war with them.
Well, I'm also buying into the innovation platform because I think that Google Now represents something that I will want to do more of later on, wherever I am. And the more things that you put into search, or the more things you put into your calendar, the more it brings together some kind of vision of where I think technology is going to go. But when I think of Bing, I don't see that happening at all. I don't see it. I don't have any emotional connection to Bing. It sounds funny. The name sounds funny. It's in movies once in a while, and I kind of bristle at it. So I mean, there's something else that that they're not showing.
Okay, I want to get.
That's why I asked the question. Well, what are they doing? I don't know.
I want to get Kevin into this a little bit. You were shaking your head about something a few minutes ago.
Well, I think Apple Maps is not anywhere near as good as Google Maps because they're years behind and they haven't got the data to integrate. And one of the weird things I found when I got the new MacBook Pro was that deleting all the Apple apps from the dock suddenly made me feel like it was a PC that had come with a load of crapware. It's like, well, I don't want their address book, I don't want their mail client, I don't want their maps. What's all this stuff doing over here in the dock? I want my browsers and I want the tools that I use. And that was an interesting experience for me because I haven't had that experience before with Apple.
I forgot.
It's the thing that disappears and makes the web there. It can be the whole OS. That's what it is on Chromebook.
When I configure my new iPad Air, I went and deleted all the icons that led to web pages. So there.
Did you delete Safari?
No, I like web pages. I like them wrapped in native wrappers. I like hybrid.
I haven't deleted Safari on the MacBook, but I am running Chrome, and I've got Safari there.
I like Chrome too. Chrome is excellent for a browser. Okay, so have I curtailed your commentary?
No. I'm puzzled. I'm puzzled by the Xbox thing because that just random speculation, but clearly they're just about to launch a new one. And they're making a big fuss about it being an always-on connected thing. I heard the designer of the Xbox speak at Roadmap this week, and his thing was, no, this is our answer to the whole thing. It sits there in your house and listens to your voice, and you say Xbox on, and it turns itself on and takes over the TV, and then you can you can shout at it, it'll show you programs and things. So they're trying to do the OK Google thing for the Xbox and make that the thing that sits in your living room and owns the TV. Which is a theme we've discussed here before, and in this household, the Xbox has been unplugged from the TV for a while and is sitting in the corner somewhere because the boys don't play with it anymore. So I'm not sure that we're going to get a new one. I think that maybe we've moved past that phase.
Well, Netflix has moved onto so many devices now that the Xbox is no longer the reason to get to Netflix.
But he was pitching the sort of the media side of it as well. He was wanting it to be, this is in the same way that Google was pitching the Google TV thing. He was saying, I want this to be the place that you go to control
exactly.
your TV.
And the only one that's actually effectively integrated the two is Chromecast would be effective if in fact it worked on more than two applications, but it doesn't. I think the reason that
that's true. They need to open up a bit more.
I think the reason that they're saying what they're saying about, or that Elop is supposedly saying what they're saying about Bing and what was the first thing that was surprising about
Xbox?
Xbox, thank you. It was only like 3 seconds ago that I heard the word Xbox. Short-term memory, a big problem. Long-term memory, I can remember 1963 like it was yesterday. I think the most important part of this announcement was that they're trying to hide between these sort of radical shifts the notion that they're going to move off of Windows being protected by Office and move Office onto Android and iOS, which I think is where Frank Shaw's fiction comment comes from. Because if Microsoft gets off the strategy of saving the world from open, it's then there's no reason for Frank Shaw to be at Microsoft anymore. You might as well go to another company.
Is it worthwhile for Office to run on a phone? Because
I think that's the fundamental problem.
It just doesn't seem to be the right form factor for using the kind of the ribbon interface, and they have to kind of reinvent that, which would mean they'd have multiple versions of Office. They'd have the Windows one, they have the Mac one, which is kind of a fork. They have the an iOS version. Then they'll have something with small and different kinds of form factors. I mean, what do you need it?
No, I mean, I've been using Quip for the last week occasionally, and it works great. It works on a
maybe
small
it's good
device.
for reading like an Excel chart, but then all the Android phones seem to come with Quick Office or the other one that's like Quick Office that I forget the name of.
Google.
And then we have Google Docs and
Google
spreadsheets.
Docs, yeah.
Right, and Google freewared Quick Office Pro about several weeks before Apple essentially did the same thing, which I think Apple's been damaged by the fact that they've taken all the features out of Pages and haven't put any real features into Numbers.
The real problem is that I just wrote a book using Microsoft Word, and it's still the old paradigm of files and not real live collaboration, not much cloud. I mean, yeah, they try to shoehorn it into the cloud, but it's not built around cloud the way Salesforce is, or the way Box.net is, or the way Docs and spreadsheets are. So there's this old paradigm and a new paradigm, and they're trying to take something that was built for an old paradigm and push it into these new paradigms of cloud and mobile, and it just doesn't quite work. And I don't think Microsoft is ever going to start from scratch and say, how do we really rethink Word or Excel or PowerPoint for the new person, for the new paradigm. They're never going to build a mobile first Office.
Well, that's what John's asking, and
that's not going to happen.
Well, that's what they tried a decade ago with OneNote, wasn't it? And that's been it's sidelined ever since.
But OneNote was locked up by the same old strategy that created Ajax in the first place.
Can't compete with Office, yeah.
Yeah, you can't have a freely redistributable player, and therefore nobody cares. So, Danny, do you think that Office is dead?
No, because my kids' school still made them write something in Word. I was just talking with one of our employees, and they needed Excel to deal with something for Google Analytics. They needed Excel, and Excel on Windows was the only thing that was going to work. Mm-hmm. So no, I don't think Office is dead. I think it's going to continue to sort of die. I think that the wisdom that Microsoft had of switching over to this Office 360 is starting to feel like real wisdom, where I was like, well, gosh, just get this $100 subscription, and then you're set. I don't have to worry about what platform you're on or everything.
The problem, Danny, of using the word dead.
Oh, please, don't give me that.
I'm going to give it to you because it's not the right freaking word.
I didn't say dead.
Gillmor Gang just means it's not interesting anymore, right?
Well, I mean,
so Office is The Walking Dead.
It's that it's dead.
It's like mainframes are dead. Yeah, except the bank in Miami still buys millions of dollars of mainframes a year. It still is.
Just look at where the attention is in the media.
Attention, yes.
The media doesn't care about documents. They care about
streams.
Well, no, but you know what?
Speed.
Who apparently does care about documents is Apple, because we had to sit through like this 10 to 15 minute completely boring, hey, look, I'm doing a presentation on my iPad. So,
well, that's a whole other thing. How many people?
Look, isn't that great? Oh, now I'm going to make the slowshoe. I mean, it was like, oh my God. And I can't remember who I saw on Twitter say it, but it was sort of like, yeah, look, we are a real grown-up platform where you can create on or whatever. There's lots of people.
I don't think that's what the message was of those demos. The message of those demos was, guess what? You can say that we're low on innovation and high on iteration, but guess what? You don't have any investment, you meaning Google or anybody else. You have no innovation in terms of the kinds of apps that people are going to feel that is the investment that they're making in the platform. Same thing with the media.
Google. I was on my computer at my desktop, and I needed to use a spreadsheet, so I opened up my browser and I started doing spreadsheet stuff.
It's an apps world.
Yeah, I used my browser, which is an app that allows me to do many, many things, and did some stuff on my spreadsheet through
Just look
Google
at the data.
Docs. Then I opened up my Google Drive app, and I went over to the same spreadsheet on my iPad, and I did more spreadsheety stuff.
You're talking about a minority of users who perceive the browser as being the container for the things that they do on a computing basis. It's just,
I think
just not true anymore.
The majority of people who compute and the majority of people who do computing activities are doing it through a browser.
Yeah, I agree with Dan. Normal people, when you meet them on a plane, they ask one question: does it do email? Yes. Does it do Facebook?
You watch a sitcom and they
maybe say, does it do Instagram?
It doesn't matter if they perceive it as
here's
an app
a line
or not.
from a sitcom. Just about any sitcom. Oh, there's an app for it. What is that about?
Well, I don't know what it's about, but I mean,
there's a million apps.
There's a million apps because some people want to
like everything else.
Oh, there's a browser for that.
Steve, there are over 500,000 apps in either of the app stores, and every so often they want to come back and tell you that they have more of them. People don't use 500,000 apps.
Look, I don't mind being in the minority on this view, just as long as the world is moving in that direction. So if you want to disagree with me, that's great. But
moving in what direction? That people use the browser?
People are moving toward apps as the environment.
No, they're not.
Wait.
The metaphor that they use.
To me,
for
everybody
computing.
starts out with the browser, and the browser is the gateway drug to the app, right?
Fine.
If something becomes so heavily used, i.e., Facebook, then most people move into the app for that thing.
Right. So
if you
where do they make the money? They make the money on the heroin, not on the marijuana. I mean, come on. Gateway drug. You just made my point.
Right, but if you want to talk gateway drug, hi, little kid working in school, you don't need to use Microsoft Word to make your documents. Just use Google, because here it's all free and it's in your browser, and now I'm using it.
And you can edit with your friends without being driven insane.
Guess what? Hi, I'm a
now
kid.
Now I'm writing all the stuff and everything that's there, and wait, now I got to do some more heavy duty stuff. Well, where are all my documents? Well, little kid, I have them over here in Google Docs. Why don't you get some more Google stuff, and that'll help you out? I mean, you know,
and IT's going to come in and tell them what's what, right?
What's that?
IT's going to tell them what's what.
What do you mean?
When they want to get a real job, they're going to have to use documents, and they're going to have to use Windows, and they're going to...
Not necessarily.
No, just the school tells them they have to use documents and Windows, but they use Google Docs and render them to Word at the end.
Okay.
Schools have got the most annoying IT departments.
We have two daughters, and neither of them, they use Word because they're forced to, and most of the time,
why are they forced to?
No, they don't use it usually. What?
Why are they forced to?
Because one's in college, and now she's got to do for heavy duty papers and stuff. She's supposed to.
So she needs footmark.
But she grew up on Google Apps.
But she doesn't need to do.
She doesn't even understand how email works.
I mean, our book publisher, i.e. Shell, forced me to use Word because the template system still is better in Word than it is in Google Docs, and the revision system, which you need to write a book with somebody else, is better in Word than it is in Google Docs. So there are legitimate reasons you still have to go to the old world, but I hate going to the old world. I like to stay in the new world if possible.
It still shocks me every day that Google has a platform for doing innovation on Docs in general and doesn't. I mean, they could make it so much better, so much faster, without alienating any of its installed base.
And who does
like Office does when they upgrade. I mean, they could do so much more, but they don't.
Right.
And I wonder if there's something wrong with the DNA of the company that stops it.
I don't think it's the DNA.
Maybe
I think
Kevin can answer that.
All right, but before he does, I don't think that it's something wrong with the DNA. I think that they did what they did to destabilize Microsoft, and they were somewhat effective at it.
Well, they're still doing it, but now Microsoft's going on a rampage with Office 365. I mean, they're buying up ads in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. Yeah. They're talking about Harley Davidson, and I mean, even if it's
because they're losing
a fragment of Office, they're still going on the assault of Google, and Google should be getting a lot more proactive in what they do. I just don't know why they're not.
Well, because Google is an intent satisfaction company, not a collaboration company at the heart of it. And
it's both.
Give me a break. When you talk to any of the execs there, they're always talking about intent and satisfaction, search and advertising.
Well, it depends which group you talk to.
When you go to Google's Zeitgeist, they don't sit around going, "Man, how do we make the best collaboration software in the world?" They're talking about
because that's the one they do for the people they're selling ads to. If you actually go and talk to the group that actually runs Google Enterprise and Google Office, which is generates $2 billion of revenue.
Tiny blip
they're
on the Google butt behind. When you talk to Larry or Vic or any of those guys, they don't think about collaboration software other than they have to do it at some level to
Vic
make their workforce.
All the time. That's what G+ is. You're talking out your hat there. That's the only thing you get out of Vic is collaboration software.
Okay.
So
you talk about mobile all the time, and now we don't. Everything is Google Plus is the answer to everything.
Yeah.
Before you go down this Scoble road, just for a second, answer Taschek's question.
Okay, what was Taschek's question? So Google attacked Microsoft.
Why do they not innovate on their app platform?
I can't hear Kevin.
That's because he's not saying anything.
I'm talking. Yeah. So what was Taschek's specific question? Because I lost the thread in between Scoble.
Why isn't Google improving Docs at a rate that even approaches how Microsoft is improving Office?
Well, you can argue whether Google's Microsoft improving Office or not. Docs is improving a lot.
If you actually look at it, there's a low bar. They're just not doing much.
No, it is. It's there, but it's absorbing more stuff. It's rendering more things. You're able to do more complicated stuff with it. They've added, a drawing package, a better presentation package. There's a bunch of stuff in there that works pretty well. I don't think Microsoft is improving Office very much because they're not shipping it on the majority operating systems now. They're only shipping it on their own legacy operating system. And it's not running on any of my tablets or phones. So they're more and more irrelevant to me. Whereas
Docs in the last 3 years, they've had pretty much 2.5 releases. And Google is supposed to be iterating every day, and it looks about the same as it did 2 years ago.
That's not true.
And I know it's getting better from an architectural point of view, from a platform, from an uptime availability, type of thing, but
which do you
it
use
still
to edit
looks
things
about the same.
Well, I know. Word
it
looks
might look
about the same or
about the
worse
same,
to me
but
than it did 10 years ago. So I'm not seeing improvement.
It is the same. They're both browser apps, and
I'm saying
users
it's a
don't
low
like
bar.
them.
Don't you think they should move faster than that, though? This is Google. They have their, the
what
number
else are you
2
gonna
or
do
number
with
3
Word?
recognized
It's not
brand in
about
the
Word.
world.
I mean,
They
there's
have
some
all this
weird
cash. They have all this
esoteric
income.
stuff in Word.
Their stock's over $1,000. Where's the investment in this enterprise? Do they not get it?
Yeah, no, they get it. But they're focused on making this stuff connected and shareable and integrate with everything else. They've made that stuff work, and they're good at that.
Do you use it? I mean, do you have an Android phone and you go into Google Docs? It sucks. I mean, it's just really terrible.
No,
And it's better. Yeah, so it's better than Office. It should be way better. It should be the premier experience on that phone.
We could argue about any big company this way, though, John. I'm sure there's people
but Google
going,
has
I
a
wish,
real opportunity
I wish
here to
Salesforce
kind of
Chatter did something, or
remove
I wish the
the
Rackspace Cloud
entropy,
did something.
so to speak, of the
You're
of the
talking
Office
at the same time.
ecosystem. And I feel like people are betting on them to do it, and they're not.
Okay, Robert, you said something that I couldn't hear.
Yeah, I'm just saying you could say that about any big company. I mean, we could sit around and say Salesforce Chatter isn't moving fast enough, or Rackspace Cloud's not moving fast enough. Any big company is going to have the difficulty moving quickly, and Google is just a big company. It's focused in so many different directions that I'm not shocked that one or two of those directions doesn't match up properly.
Well, I think you're asking a question, John, that you're also answering, which is no, they don't have enterprise in their DNA, no matter how much they try and sell to that. They've done a whole big enterprise thing with Google Plus in the last week.
Yeah.
And at the same time, until I hear a straight answer about what Circles is supposed to do in terms of allowing people to understand what exactly is going on.
Nobody talks about Circles anymore.
Well, isn't that kind of a problem?
No, because it was just something that they rolled out like, oh, you got to have Circles. It's so hard to figure out who you want to share with stuff. This is how we're going to be different from Facebook. And at this point, like they've come into being a nice number 2 to Facebook, and they don't need to try to make themselves look like they're different. They're just
and they were matched by Facebook back before. Yeah. Before, when Google Plus came out, Facebook didn't have lists. Now Facebook has lists, and groups. Google Plus is just has frustrating things. I mean, I could say the same thing John said about Enterprise, about Google Plus. Why does it still suggest people who've never posted to me? I've complained about that. Or why doesn't it have algorithmic filtering? I mean, Twitter. By the way, I don't know if you've started watching what Twitter's doing with the Discover tab in the mobile app, but it's starting to get filtering. And it's like, that is really interesting, because Twitter has a stream that's just raw, and then now they have a filtered stream, and they're trying to bring the best stuff to me. If I only have 2 minutes a day to look at my stream, I go to the Discover tab. And Google Plus doesn't really have that, right?
Comments?
Google Plus's main feature, I think, today is image, where photographs, where if you have your phone, your Android phone, and you take pictures, it automatically, backs it up, embellishes it, enhances it with the technology that maybe they borrowed from Pocus. I'm not sure where it came from. And then they put them into a place that's actually a shareable portal of all your photographs, which is, compared to Flickr, more secure than Flickr, which exposes everything to everybody at any point as a collaboration photo sharing
just have friends and family.
And that's
I think you went off the rails with the Flickr
Plus. Plus, it really has in addition, it has a really pretty good interface on the iPad, so that if you can share those albums on an iPad, it actually looks like a pretty good experience. And I think that's a good sign for Google, but it's not pervasive around the rest of it. So they probably have like 10 good engineers over there, and one of them's on photos, and there's nobody else who's working on the other stuff.
Well, no, what they're working on, and they told me when we met with them, they're working on stitching together all of Google's services, and the YouTube team just turned on comments. So I no longer am getting the idiotic 14-year-old comments on YouTube. It's hooked into Google Plus now and into the real identity system of Google Plus. Some people are really pissed by that, and some people like me are like, yay, finally no more 14-year-old assholes commenting on your videos, you know? So they're working on stitching together, and I think Google Plus now is the stitching between all of their services, and they've gone away from just, we're going to compete with Facebook, because they figured out they couldn't do that directly.
All right, so we've had 3 major topic areas that Steven Elop has suggested. Does anybody think that Steven Elop has a chance of being the next CEO?
No.
Okay, then what is this? Why is he doing this? Is he?
I don't know why. You mean the Bloomberg thing?
Yeah.
That's all total fabrication anyway. I usually don't agree with Frank Shaw, but that was total bullshit. Where did that come from? Somebody doesn't want Elon.
Robert, it was 3 people close to his mind.
And do you think that that's true, that it was 3 people close to his mind? I
think it was some board director who leaked a story who didn't want him to be CEO because he's a dickhead and wants to churn the water. And
this is why I love this show, is that I don't have to say anything, and it comes out really.
That's what's going
nasty.
on. There's all these parties that are trying to get their guy into the job, you know, and they're playing in the press. Yeah, and Frank Shaw's just going, okay, that's sort of interesting.
I think he's protecting his job. I don't think he wants to.
Frank
work for
is,
Steven
of course.
Elop. Yeah. Well, I think he's a very smart guy, but I think that it is exactly. I mean, Steven Elop, when Ray Ozzie was running the software, Elop was. I wouldn't say he was Ray's man inside, but he was more Muglia's man. But there was definitely the notion that Elop was a fast learner and that he might be the guy who could come in and sort of, you know, be the Nixon that goes to China inside Microsoft. And then, of course, that evaporated when Ray left. So, you know, I mean, this wouldn't be all that interesting if Sinofsky was still there, but he's not. So, you know, there's a kind of a vacuum going on there.
There's a big vacuum at Microsoft right now. But Microsoft needs a visionary, somebody who can articulate a future for that company, and particularly in the consumer side of the company. The enterprise side of the company is going to roll along for decades, even if they do nothing. And it's going to make billions of dollars a year, even if they do nothing, right? Because companies are not going to tear out their SharePoint servers or their Exchange servers and replace them tomorrow. They might a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
Well, they may not use them.
They might not use them, and they might, you know, i.e., they become less and less relevant and less interesting. That might be true, but the enterprise side of the company, just keep it running rationally and add a few features every year, and you're set. The consumer side is the oxygen that drives the enterprise company long term. So they have a real deep problem right now because the consumer side of the company is not working. 4% market share.
Microsoft's biggest problem is
4% market share.
They're clueless about notifications, and that's going to kill them.
They're clueless about everything consumer except for maybe Xbox and even Xbox.
You don't agree?
Yeah, I don't agree.
Okay,
why?
Tell me why.
Because I don't think of all the problems they have, not doing notifications is the big issue.
Well, I think notifications is killing Windows, so that's a pretty big problem for them.
Why?
Because I don't use Windows.
Because you can't get
and I use notifications all the
pop
time.
Up?
They don't have a notifications play. The notifications that are out there are between Android and iOS. It's like 95%.
What's that got?
Their
you don't need a
system is
GUI
tiled.
in order to react on a mobile device to a notification. It's the new OS.
Yeah, that's not a notifications thing. That's that you don't think they have very good market share with mobile phones.
They don't have a notification engine.
Yeah, but that's not why they don't sell phones. I mean, that's like saying, well, if only they had better notifications, then more people would buy their phones. That's not the problem.
No,
the problem
what I'm saying is that what Elop allegedly...
And they do have notifications on Windows Phone. I get notifications all the time.
I know those little chiclets, right?
No, you get little notifications.
They have streaming notifications, Steve.
Yeah.
It's just like iOS and Android. The problem is the ecosystem is screwed because they're late. And
they're
now
mobile.
They're trying to catch up.
It's all about
4%
mobile.
Market share. That's all we need to know.
What's their share of phone?
4% right now. In the United
what's their
States.
share of tablets?
It's going up to 8.
Up.
Some countries are 8 or 10. Okay, but only America matters to the Western world. You don't win San Francisco and New York, you do not win in the world. I'm sorry, right?
No,
you certainly do not win the profit, and Microsoft needs profit.
We just had these stats come out that Windows Phone was actually really big. I think bigger than iOS in Italy. So I don't know that
doesn't matter, dude. I don't care if you don't win New York and San Francisco, you don't have the profits that generate the rest of the ecosystem. And Microsoft is used to 80-90% market share, and they're used to 80-90% of the profits in the industry. Well, those profits today belong to Apple and Samsung. Microsoft is losing money in mobile because they have no market share in the markets that really fucking matter.
Okay, the markets that really matter are not just New York and San Francisco. Sorry.
I'm sorry. America is the market that matters.
Okay,
you want to make
not New York. That's not New York and San Francisco.
Profit, I'm sorry.
New York. That's not New York and San Francisco. If winning New York and San Francisco is all that mattered, Path would be the world's greatest social network right now. Guess what? The only people that I know that seem to use Path are in New York and San Francisco. Everywhere else, out in the normals,
Path never.
Why bother?
Path never owned San Francisco, man.
Oh, that's what stopped them.
No. They are not being talked about by anybody. Pat did not own San Francisco and New York. Give me a fucking break.
Well, who do they own?
They don't own anybody. That's why people off.
But Robert, of the things that they own, they have far more people using them in New York and San Francisco than anywhere else.
Not in terms of market share.
Well, no, that's what I guess what I'm saying is.
Facebook owns 90% of the market. Okay, they're the ones making the profit. They're a $100 billion market cap.
I understand that.
Twitter owns the rest of the market. That's why they're a $35 billion market cap company.
As somebody who doesn't live in San Francisco and New York, and in particular does not run around in the tech circles all the time, I feel like sometimes I get a better perspective of what normal people are doing. And I know you talk to people all the time on and everything else as well, and I don't think I'm actually disagreeing with you much. It's that I don't really want to say you win these two cities and you get the whole thing. I think you actually have to win a mass audience, and you may win that mass audience because you take off in a particular city, or maybe you take off in a particular community, or maybe you just take off everywhere. Because I don't know how Snapchat got going, but it didn't get going in San Francisco.
It did actually. All the kids in San Francisco are using it. And have been using it for a long time.
Everywhere else aren't using it?
What?
Do you think all the kids everywhere else aren't using it?
Yeah, of course they are. But San Francisco and New York...
And do you think that a service based out of Venice, California, maybe...
Name a single company that won outside of San Francisco and New York without getting San Francisco and New York. Does not happen because these are the centers of the population of the United States. These are the biggest...
God, Robert, have you lost your mind? The population of San Francisco is a couple 100,000 people. The population of Los Angeles is millions of people. The populations of most cities are larger than the populations of San Francisco.
Okay,
San Francisco is the fifth largest market. It has 5 million people. There's 800,000 that live in the city, but it's a big market.
But you're counting San Jose.
I don't think that's
San Francisco is tiny.
Anyway, I think Path is losing people left and right. It's just not a viable thing anymore.
Other metropolitan areas. We can go up against the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. We can go up against the Southern California metropolitan area. So no,
Washington, D.C. metropolitan area includes Baltimore. No one cares about Baltimore.
What's
except Joe Flacco.
Yeah, nobody cares about Baltimore except
Name
Joe
one
Flacco. I don't even know who Joe Flacco is.
Name one company that won L.A. and then won the world without winning San Francisco and New York first. Name one.
MySpace.
Go to.
MySpace did not win outside of anything, and it was winning in San Francisco until Facebook moved here, and then
it won LA first, Robert.
Not in that way. Oh, Facebook. There you go, Boston. Because they don't normally happen that way. You don't normally think, in my opinion, oh my God, this company has taken over all the people in this one city, therefore it can now merge elsewhere. I do think that you can get early adopters that are clustered in those sorts of cities, and they can be a strong indicator that you have other early adopters, but more individually in other places, right? So I guess what I would say is I think you're using New York and San Francisco as a proxy for, an early adopter warning system. Or if not,
exactly. That's why that guy who no longer is at the Times called the election based on a small number of exit polls.
Nate Silver, yeah.
But what I'm saying is, it's not that you want a critical mass in San Francisco of early adopters, and therefore this application can now go on to conquer the rest of the world. It's that you have so many early adopters in San Francisco or in New York out of proportion to where you have them everywhere else. Even though a long tail of early adopters, that are outweighing the number of people in those particular areas.
And we have the money here. So you still got to come here if you want big money. That's true. It's just like saying Hollywood controls the film industry, and it does. It has the money for the film. You want to produce a big budget film, you got to go to Hollywood and convince somebody to give you $100 million.
But I guess all this is sort of off the point as to. I think it all got started because we were talking about what was the problem with why Windows Phone wasn't doing better, and Steve was saying because it didn't have notifications. And I think you and I, Robert, probably both agree that it's not that they don't have notifications; it's that they were late to the game.
They're late to the game because every time there's a transformational change, they're behind the curve, and they were able to get away with that as long as they controlled the desktop. The desktop is gone, and it's now this device, and they don't control it.
Well, they don't control that one, and
they don't control the other one either. There are two. They're the third, maybe.
Well, no, they control the desktop space. They have far more sales of desktops than Mac OS.
Yeah, but everybody goes and gets 90% of their, cycles are on their phone.
Sure.
The desktop is a device you use to create a spreadsheet or do some heavy-duty work. It's not the device that you use for 90% of your... ever since I got this iPad Air, I've been moving back to the MacBook Air because it's a great machine and it's fun to use, and I don't have to go through the hoops that I have to go through with the tablet. They come out with a tablet that is easy to use, fits into a pocket in this jacket. I showed it to Tina or somebody, and they said, "Oh, is that the?" And then they realized it's bigger than the iPad Mini. Well, guess what? The iPad Mini is now morphed into the iPad Air, and this device is now becoming very close to an omnibus device that's going to take up, pretty much 100% of all the cycles that are going on. At that point, Microsoft is screwed. So I think they're screwed already.
So, Danny, if you were CEO of Microsoft, what would you do?
Oh my God.
Because I have no fucking idea. That's the second time.
I'd probably take a hard look at how I spend. I'd probably take a hard look at how I spend my marketing money, because I think they spend. Looking at Bing, you're like, they just spend so much on it. You're like, if you're trying to get profitable, maybe you should be spending it a better way.
So you would optimize the company for profit?
I like the idea of moving all the applications and making them completely cross-platform, and the idea of making sure that you do have Office not just for desktop but Office for phone, and that you have Office everywhere. I'd want to win on all the different platforms.
The problem is, Danny, if you want to make an app for iOS, that means you have to have a programmer that understands Objective-C and thinking mobile. And do those people really want to work at Microsoft? I know the answer is absolutely no, because that is not the future.
They want to work. They want to work.
If you can
where
code
there's
Objective C
share.
right now, you can go and start a startup,
It's
or
not
you can work at Twitter and get some. Well, now you can't work at Twitter anymore because it's post IPO, but you can work at some pre-IPO company like Snapchat or Pinterest or something like that, and maybe in 5 years you're going to be a multimillionaire. You're not going to get that at Microsoft.
If that's your problem, then set up a studio for applications that's going to be privately held. It'll go public later, and maybe you have shares in it, and maybe all the engineers that you bring into it are.
Well, that's an interesting idea.
That's
what John
very
Borthwick does.
So, and then, I think I would certainly keep going with Xbox. I try to bring that ecosystem closer together. I think they're kind of getting there. I would make Windows 8.2 where you're either in the tablet or you're on a desktop. But none of this, I'm in a tablet now, or I'm going back and forth. It's like a freaking nightmare. And then I think they might have something very compelling with Surface. I've been playing with Surface earlier this week. I had jury duty, so my trial by fire, I went out to Surface, and it was like, it's just maddening using Windows 8 because you're like, I'm on the desktop. No, now I'm back on Metro. This thing will run in Metro. This thing won't. This is, it's like, I really, really understood how much it's nicer that when you are on the iPad and you're using applications that are made for the iPad, it is not trying to make you do stuff that it really can't do well. And whereas when you're in Surface, it has the power because it's a real computer to let you do many more things, but then it keeps throwing you back into this tablet world. So that would be part of it, I suppose.
Okay.
Make Windows free.
I want to, well, in other words, follow the Apple playbook. That's a good idea, actually. I think that what Elop was the stalking horse for is what they are going to have to do. So whether it's Elop or he just goes and is number 2 under the guy from Ford or whatever, I think is irrelevant. They have to make a move. It's not about Bing. It's not about Xbox. It's about the lock that Microsoft has, traditionally, because Bill Gates has always maintained the idea that you have to protect Windows at all costs. And I think that what this leak is we're going to give up on protecting Windows at all costs. And that's going to be a really hard thing for them to do, but it's probably going to be the right thing for them. John Taschek has to go soon, so I want to give him a few minutes, and then we'll go around the table, and then we'll wrap this one up. John?
Is the question, what would you do if you were the CEO of Microsoft?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think the first thing to do is some kind of alignment exercise around that the divisions don't work against each other, that work with each other, and the divisions that don't, you kind of pair those off and sell them. And it might be Xbox that does that. It might be, they were set up to be somewhat different, and therefore they're successful. Maybe either take some of that and inject it into the rest of Microsoft or not. I would definitely, I would think about getting rid of Bing, because I don't think they've rationalized any part of that platform for the rest of the assets that Microsoft has. And they have substantial assets. They have research, they have the product lines, they have the whole the enterprise, they have development, they have a lot of stuff. And I just think of Bing as some kind of, adjunct in order to, fend off Google rather than to recreate Microsoft. As far as Xbox goes, I think they should not get rid of that. I think that one is that brings new lifeblood into the Microsoft brand at the minimum, and they have a ton of back-end services that they can provide around how they interface with end users on a mass scale around the world, not just in San Francisco or New York.
And they need to compete with what Apple's doing with Apple TV and AirPlay. So that I agree with that. Robert, you have also, I think, agreed with in advance of what John's saying here about not getting rid of Xbox.
You never get rid of things that people are lining up around the block to buy. And if you try to buy an Xbox One right now, you'll find out how long the waiting line is. It's sold out. So going to be a hot Christmas gift idea. So yeah, where did Bloomberg get their ideas for what they printed? I don't know.
I think they got it from Steven Elop.
I think Danny said the most interesting thing, which is start a little spin out and make that a private company, fund it by Microsoft, and bring in cool.
Basically.
No, start a new. I mean, Microsoft has enough profits to go for a long time, and but they need to make something interesting, and they're not going to do it in their current paradigm. The way they review people, the way they promote people, the way that they, cause this internecine warfare. It's just really screwed up internally, and I don't know how to fix that. It's a deep, deep problem that is keeping interesting ideas from flowing through their system. And so I would be, if I was CEO, I'd be looking at ideas like Danny put forth. Let's just put all this in a box and put a piece of concrete around it and say that goes. It's like a radioactive thing, and let's go and play over here and take the Xbox team and take the Windows Mobile team and try to make something cool. They still have a little bit of chance there, but it's every day that goes by. Google is, gonna come. I mean, Brett's sitting next to me playing on a Samsung phone, right? And I'm playing on an iPhone right now. I don't see a good future for Microsoft in mobile. I just don't.
I see this as two questions. One is what do they do, and the other one is how does somebody get to be the new CEO? And I think that the problem that they're having is very similar to the problem the Republican Party's having with the Tea Party. You have to run all the way to the right in the primaries to get a nominee, and then you have to be able to run away from everything that you said in order to become elected. And I think that's what the problem is with what Microsoft's going through. Danny, you want to summarize?
Well, I think Microsoft has an opportunity to really go cross-platform if it wanted to. I think one of the nice things about Google,
roots, yeah.
One of the nice things I think about Google, and that I think is its strength, is that the Google Calendar allowed me to use my Google Calendar everywhere. That's one of the reasons why I started putting my stuff there, because it didn't matter what platform I was on. Until I got back into Windows 8. They still haven't fixed things there, right? But I could be on my Windows phone, and my calendar was there. I could be on iPhone, iPad, on a tablet. It was everywhere. And I was looped into it, and I liked it. And so, the idea that Microsoft might say, we sell Windows, we sell software, we don't care what you use. We like our operating system, and we think if you want to use our operating system, it's great. But we also have some online services. We think those are great, and you can use those. And you kind of see that with Outlook, right? Because it's through the browser or whatever. But that's a strength that I think Apple lacks. Apple gains that they're operating, that their ecosystem is so closely tied. But if you're in that ecosystem and you want to get out, you're screwed. I like using Apple Notes, right? Because of the sync between my Mac and my iPad, but when I'm on my tablet, if it's a Windows tablet or a Windows phone, not Windows, an Android phone, then I'm like, oh yeah, that's why I should actually shift over to Google Keep, because then my stuff will be everywhere. And so there's a few things like that where you're like, yeah, this is really stuck in the Apple ecosystem. If you're happy in that world, it's okay, but if you ever want to leave, then you might kind of get annoyed. And I think they just have an opportunity there. To maybe out Apple and out Google, both of them, by being free and being open. Kumbaya. Or not.
As he slowly fades away.
Do you want the level now? That was so cool. So cool.
Okay, Kevin?
Do you need a level?
So I think Den has a bit of a point there. Microsoft started out being the cross-platform company. They wrote BASIC for every computer system on Earth. Then they started writing Windows and porting that to lots of different machines. And they've gone down this we can make our own hardware route, which I think is going to hurt them. And they need to pop back out of that rat hole and say we need to run on these other platforms, otherwise we're going to get irrelevant. And that's there's the Office group particularly. They need to. It doesn't help them if they're building collaboration tools if they only work on Windows, because that is not what most people are using all the time now. That's in terms of minutes used, it's dipping really, really fast. So they need to stop doing that and get back to creating software for everyone. And that does mean rethinking the interaction models and things they've got. And they have a lot of experience there. They have a great group at Microsoft Research. They've been looking at this for years and been ignored by the Office group and the Windows group because they were the cash cows. And they need to look at the way those curves are going and say, okay, we need to be in these other places too. And they've got bits of it. The Office 365 is a start, but there's a lot of broken legacy stuff there too. And I think that it's going to be very hard for them to come back from that.
All right. Well, I want to thank Rackspace and particularly Rob Legess, without which we wouldn't be at the current state of ineptitude that we are enjoying. I want to thank NewTek, and I'm going to be thanking them a lot more and a lot louder. I don't know about next week. We're in the run-up to Dreamforce, which, by the way, is going to be amazing, which is not next week, but the following week. And we're going to be trying to absorb this new device that NewTek has delivered, and along with many other things that are happening on the software front, and we're all going to bring this together in a really exciting thing that will incorporate even more the chat room and the information that flows around and becomes what this show is really about. I want to thank our producer and director, Tina Chase Gillmor. Thank you. I want to thank John Taschek.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
You too. I want to thank Robert Scoble.
Yo. Have a great weekend.
I want to thank Danny Sullivan. It's great to have you back. I hope to see you again real soon.
I'll be a little more calm next time.
Yeah, no.
No,
I think you just need to amp it up.
It's entertainment, Danny. Come on.
Yeah, we had it felt like Leo and Arrington there for a while.
It's all in fun. This is what we do.
That was all in fun too, by the way.
Yeah.
That's why Fridays are so fun. We argue about the future of the world, and sometimes I'm right, and most of the time I'm wrong, so it's okay.
And I want to thank Kevin Marks, as always, the Rock of Gibraltar. Is that a British protectorate?
I think it's still technically a colony.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get to mention my shiny new Nexus 5 at all. I'm very, very, very sad about that, because I think it's a lovely phone.
Who's not getting a Nexus 5?
I've got a Nexus 5. Anyone?
I'm not. If
It's
you're
my
not
phone.
on Verizon, you do not exist in my
When's it
world.
going to work on Verizon?
Oh, you need to. It's not.
When
gonna work on
Verizon supports open standards.
Ooh.
So not.
It's
Yeah, but I
can
can make a phone call.
So, in other words, when Google supports open standards, is that how that works?
No, Verizon's got the proprietary weird CDMA network that you're kind of screwed with, whereas this is GSM and LTE and works everywhere.
Yeah. Well, Steve Jobs seemed to get around the blockade of the carriers. Where's Google's plan?
In fact, that's why I moved my. That's why I moved to the iPhone. I have my iPhone with AT&T. I moved it to Verizon because I figured Verizon's not going to dick with the iPhone, and I stopped using Android on Verizon because they screw everything up. And turns out AT&T's network is pretty good these days.
And T-Mobile's pretty good for this. I've been very happy with it.
You know, a $350 smartphone, no contract, pretty nice.
That's very nice.
I want to thank everybody who showed up, especially the chat room, and especially those who didn't show up. Please keep staying away in great numbers. We appreciate it. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.